Welcome to the show, friend. Please stay with me if you can for the whole program. You're going to want to see the segment on Amendment 1 in Tennessee. But I want to talk to you first about elections. We have the election coming up very shortly. And I was pondering this morning, why do we have elections? I mean, have you ever thought about it? Why do we have elections? I've thought about this a lot in the past, and I'm going to give you the answer. You ready? The reason we have elections is so that we don't have to kill people. I repeat, I'm not trying to be facetious, and I'm not trying to be highly charged, but it's actually the truth. The reason that we have elections is so that we don't have to kill people. What does an election represent? It represents, or it brings about, the change of government. Now look at some parts of the world in our lifetimes, over the centuries. How did they have changes of government? Well, for some of them, they didn't for a long time. They had dynasties, kings, emperors, the divine right of kings. And some of them ruled benevolently. Some of them ruled with an iron fist. But that's what it was. If you wanted to change the king, you either waited for him to die or you tried to overthrow him. Such as with the Cromwellian Revolution against the English monarchy. Such as with the American Revolution, with King George III. They wouldn't let us vote. And so what did our forebears do? They picked up guns. They killed their fellow Britons in the American Revolutionary War. Look around the world today. Guerrilla warfare, terrorism, murders, assassinations, disappearances. The reason that we have elections is it's war by another means. That's one of the reasons that they call them campaigns. The old use of the word campaign was a military campaign. All right? Think back. Think of your writing of the Caesars or the Greeks, their campaign against such and such a country. It wasn't a vote. It was a war. It was a battle. So elections are war by another means. They're battles by another means, a peaceful means. And I, for one, I'm thankful. I mean, there is probably a large portion of people, minority, but a large minority in the country that would like to see some people not be alive. We got them out of power and we sent them on their way into the next life. But we don't want that. We want to have a peaceful transition of power. Even during the Civil War, Lincoln was reelected. I mean, it's been an amazing experiment in self-government, as we call it here in America. Now, there are some people who are very upset, justly so, about the direction that our country is taking. And as I've covered on the show, there was a poll recently that said that about a third of Americans believe that a revolution, a violent revolution, will be necessary to re-secure our constitutional rights. If you hang out with certain people or listen to certain things on the radio or on TV or read certain blogs or whatever, you'll see people saying what we need is a Second Amendment style revolution. We're going to have to revolt. And I look at them and I say, you know, two things. Number one, if you've run with footmen and grown weary, how are you going to run with horses? We are so outgunned right now. Government officials have the American populace so outgunned as far as armaments that it's just not feasible. But I'm going to go a step further and to rebuke people who think that way. All right? I rebuke you, and here's why. We have a built-in revolution every 2 years. The United States House of Representatives, the entire House, 435 seats, is up for re-election every 2 years. You want to have a revolution? You want a complete change of government? There it is, without firing a shot. And the founders of this republic created the House of Representatives to have the ability for immediacy. It's the people's house. We can reach it quickly. We don't like what they're doing, we throw them out quickly. All spending bills originate in the House of Representatives. So if the government is spending our money in a way we don't like, it starts with the House. The House of Representatives is the first to introduce legislation or a bill to spend money. And if we don't like what they're doing, bang, we can get rid of them every 2 years, and we can have a revolution peacefully. So if you look at the ills that are destroying this country, just look at the funding of Planned Parenthood, this criminal syndicate protecting pimps and pedophiles and child predators and people that are trafficking in human souls and bodies in the so-called sex industry. Sex slavery is more like it. Planned Parenthood is getting federal tax money, our money, and our representatives don't get them out. Don't defund them. And we don't take out our representatives. And so at the end of the day, thank God for elections and the fault of the corrupt, godless leadership that is literally destroying this country on the installment plan. The fault for that lies primarily with the voters of America, including the Christians who have voted to put some of these tyrannical monsters in office. But I digress. Vote, because it's better than the alternative.
You have two choices. I mean, you can try to raise your children by design, or you will raise them by default. There are no perfect parents. We're going to get it wrong sometimes. If we have a plan, we've got a better chance of getting it right in the long run.
There is something deep within the heart of every human being that longs for parental acceptance and approval. When does a boy become a man?
Get a group of guys around and ask them that question.
I don't think there's a certain age. Some men stay boys their whole life.
I would say, 16, 18 years old?
Wow, that's a good question.
When they get bar mitzvah?
Well, I think when he has a child. So I just became at 56, 56 years old.
Without the power of the Holy Spirit changing us and giving us power over our sin, we can't hope to be the dads that our kids need us to be.
Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today.